Alright, stick with me here. I just woke up as the absolute worst stepdad to a future villainess. According to the plot, this kid is destined to give me a brutally tragic ending later on. But the good news? The little villainess is currently just a tiny 8-year-old squirt. I swear, I am going to totally flip her impression of me. I will become a universally adored, legendary, doting father. Right on cue, heavy rain poured down at midnight, and she caught a bad fever. I carried her on my back, trekking for over half an hour to the clinic. Along the way, I was so moved by my own greatness that I teared up. She cried too, asking why I insisted on walking in the rain when we literally owned a car. Later on, the noble benefactor who would influence her entire life finally showed up, wanting to take her away. But Lyra just shook her head. She said her dad had a few loose screws, so she had to stay behind and take care of him. The crazy story started that very night. I stayed up late binge watching shows, went to the bathroom at dawn, and bam. As I stood up, everything went pitch black, and I totally collapsed like a potato sack. When I woke up, I had transmigrated into a novel called The Boss's Pampered Darling, becoming the wicked stepdad of the main villainess. The timing was absolute garbage. I had just slapped Lyra across the face, and my big mouth was still screaming that her mom was gone forever. Why did she leave behind a useless burden like you? You are just extra baggage. Lyra looked up at me with cold, empty eyes. On her cheek was a bright red, angry handprint, but her gaze was not weak at all. Now pay attention. She hid fierce hatred deep inside. An 8-year-old with a glare like that? Absolutely wild. I instantly felt a chill down my spine. Without thinking, I automatically dropped to my knees, grabbed her little hand, and slapped my own face hard. Your mom passed away, and dad is so completely heartbroken that his brain is literally glitching. Please do not blame dad. I am so sorry. I bowed my head, practically kowtowing an apology. Lyra froze for a second, frowned, gave me a look of pure disgust, and ran away. I slumped on the floor, absolutely drowning in total despair. I am cooked, entirely, completely roasted, because right then, I absorbed the entire awful plot. This body belonged to Vance Sterling. He was married to Lyra's mom for just 1 year before she suddenly passed away in a car crash. From that exact moment, Lyra's life turned into a living nightmare. Vance scolded the kid daily, insulted her endlessly, and even forced her to scavenge for scrap bottles after school just to pay her own tuition. At home, this absolute jerk shamelessly paraded other women around, doing the most despicable things right in front of the poor kid. The climax hit when they moved. A super creepy neighbor took advantage of Vance being away to lay his hands on little Lyra. The poor girl was completely traumatized. And the most terrifying part, Vance did not even call the cops. He deliberately covered up the crime. After that incident, Lyra's personality completely twisted into darkness. You and I know what comes next, right? She escapes, finds a mentor, and returns 10 years later for pure revenge. The very first thing she did was dump all her hatred right onto Vance. Thinking about his tragic ending made me shiver to my core. Losing everything, wandering the streets as a broken beggar, bullied endlessly, and finally, perishing alone in a dark alley. Just picturing that awful fate made my face turn completely pale green. I was totally white as a sheet, taking a really long time to regain my composure. I lay paralyzed on my bed, eating nothing, drinking zero, my brain frying itself, until night fell. Finally, I gave myself a solid mental pep talk. I figured it out. I still have a chance. The villainess is only 8. I definitely have time to repair our relationship. As long as I am totally genuine, I can definitely dodge the catastrophic ending of the original novel. I took a deep breath, instantly feeling energized and totally prepared to go comfort Lyra. But I searched the whole house and could not find her anywhere. Suddenly, a passing neighbor looked up and yelled, "Vance," making me jump. He said he just saw Mr. Thorne, who mentioned my kid, Lyra, was still at school. Why have you not picked her up yet? Everyone left except her. I panicked, stepped back, and slammed my hip into the table edge. Before my Father of the Year campaign even started, I practically took myself out. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. She left early, only to get cornered in a tiny alley by older bullies. They said she was a jinx, blamed her for her dad passing away, and now her mom. They cruelly demanded she transfer schools. Being near you creeps me out. Yeah, exactly. A walking bad luck charm. Like you should just get lost. I got yelled at by the teacher today. It is definitely because your awful curse rubbed off on me. Poor little Lyra, with her tiny frame, was tightly surrounded by those mean brats. Stick with me here. You and I are diving into a wild story. Her face was scratched, but she stayed completely silent, used to this exact scene. Right before those kids shoved her, rushed over, safely pulling Lyra behind my back. I raised my hand and boldly swatted one of those mean little brats. The whole group completely froze, totally stunned that an adult swatted them. Deep down, they were just scared kids. I glared incredibly hard at them all. If you dare bully Lyra again, I am calling the police. The kids panicked and scattered fast, running and screaming out loud, "The evil uncle is here! The evil uncle is here, you punks!" I was so incredibly mad. I grabbed my shoe and angrily tossed it right at them. But I totally missed every single one of them. My shoe just flew off to parts unknown. I crouched down looking for my shoe, turning around to call out to Lyra, "Help Dad find his shoe." For a second, she did not even bother answering me. Wearing an ice-cold face, she walked right past me without looking back. She quietly headed straight home. Ever since I resolved to become a famously kind father, I started researching all sorts of perfect textbook parenting examples to easily copy. I cooked up fish for Lyra, eating only the fish head. When she caught a bad fever, I carried her on my back late at night to quickly find a doctor. Spotting her torn clothes, I immediately grabbed a needle and thread to carefully mend them up. But after I finished sewing, that needle magically vanished into thin air, and I had to go buy a new one. Walking to the supermarket, I happily thought to myself, surely Lyra must be feeling my deep paternal care by now, right? Meanwhile, back at her school, Lyra quietly pulled a needle out from inside her shirt. Yup, that needle was left pinned inside her shirt. It scratched her skin deeply, leaving a painfully long gash. A huge red mark soaked right through her uniform blouse. Her deskmate saw it, turned totally pale with fright, hurriedly handing her some tissues. That boy was a kind soul. He asked with deep concern, "Is your stepdad still treating you terribly?" Lyra calmly wiped the mess off her hand, her face completely expressionless. "It is just a very different flavor of torture now. I genuinely thought I was treating her amazingly well, yet she was still guarding against me to a completely extreme extent. Sometimes I distinctly felt her secretly observing me from the dark shadows, using high alert, intense predator tracking eyes. Watch closely now." One night, I suddenly jolted awake, only to find Lyra standing right beside my bed. That terrifying scene nearly snatched my soul right out of my body. No matter how hard I tried to hold back, I shot up and snapped. "What in the world are you doing?" Lyra let out a chilling chuckle, her voice absolutely dripping with sarcasm. "Tired of pretending, aren't we?" I frowned deeply. Before I could process it, she continued, "You are getting exhausted acting nice, right? You are just eyeing my mom's compensation money, right? Keep dreaming. Not a chance." I rolled my eyes and let out a dramatic, super disdainful scoff. "Who even wants it?" After saying that, I turned right around and lay back down, planning to sleep. But less than 3 seconds later, I sat straight back up. "Well, I am already awake. Might as well get up," I said. "Dad will walk you to school, okay? Knowing me, we'll probably oversleep tomorrow morning anyway." Lyra frowned. "It is 3 a.m. I know," I quickly replied. "But you are not sleeping here, are you?" Lyra stared at me for seconds, then silently turned and walked away. I called out after her, "Hey, close the door for Dad on your way out. You and I should note this: that summer changed everything for our relationship. A brand new tenant moved into our apartment block. The man had a refined, scholarly look, and rumor had it he was a local middle school teacher. The neighbors all praised his kindness, saying he often tutored their kids for totally free after school or on weekends. Mrs. Higgins from next door told me about it, but I could not care less. Our house does not need it. My Lyra is incredibly smart. She ranks first in her grade every single exam, and that is straight facts. She is the Villainess. Of course, her brain is not basic. Lyra was totally brilliant, dominating every single subject. If she just had a happy childhood, her future would undoubtedly be blindingly bright. Thinking about that, a wave of melancholy washed right over me. Hearing me praise the kid, Mrs. Higgins scoffed, gave me a massive side eye, and snarked, "So what if she is smart? She is not even your biological daughter." After dropping that huge truth bomb, she grabbed her vegetable basket and boldly marched off without looking back. I, on the other hand, cheerfully mumbled to myself, Raising a daughter this incredibly talented is definitely making those people entirely jealous. I quickly turned around and bam, saw Lyra standing right there. She was looking at me with a totally unreadable expression, maybe cold, maybe confused. I felt a little awkward and tried to think of something to say to break the ice, but she honestly did not give a single hoot. She just quietly turned around and went back to her room to study. That evening, while going out to take out the trash, the kid suddenly vanished. I totally panicked, frantically knocking on every neighbor's door to ask, "So what do we make of this?" Everyone claimed I was overreacting over half an hour. She just went to play with friends. Stick with me here. I knew Lyra had 0 friends nearby, and her things were untouched. She did not pack a single bag. 0 signs. She ran off. A neighbor saw me absolutely panicking and suggested I go upstairs to ask Mr. Alistair for help. Maybe she went up there. Without hesitating, I bolted straight upstairs and pounded heavily on his door. When he finally opened up, the guy had a fresh bump right on his forehead, like he had completely smashed into something. Still, he maintained a totally polite expression and calmly asked what was wrong. Pushing down my panic, I asked if my stepdaughter Lyra had come by, since I couldn't find her. He just shook his head and offered to help me look for her. I stared right at the nasty bruise on his forehead and asked what happened. He just brushed it off, claiming he bumped into a kitchen cabinet. He chuckled smoothly, pretending it was absolutely nothing. I shook my head right back, telling him there was 0 need to trouble him. I said I would search on my own. As I turned around, my mind was racing at lightning speed, desperately trying to figure out where she vanished. Just as he was about to slam the door, something suddenly clicked in my mind. I instantly threw my arm out, stopping the door. I stared straight into his dark eyes and demanded to know what his real full name was. Now, pay attention, here is where things get wild. Lyra was locked inside a tiny storage room, completely tied up and gagged. While she was just taking out the trash, this complete creep suddenly covered her mouth and forcefully dragged her away into the shadows. Even though she fought back with everything she had, she only managed to leave that single scratch on his head. The strength difference was just way too massive. She had no real way to fight back. All she could do was hope someone would notice and rescue her. Maybe an eagle-eyed neighbor, a teacher checking in, or literally any friend just stopping by. But what she never saw coming was that in her absolute darkest moment, the person standing outside was the stepdad she hated the most. Outside, his voice echoed with pure, frantic panic. It genuinely did not sound like acting, but she thought he was way too naive, so easily tricked by the villain's polite mask. But before despair could totally swallow her, she heard a huge crash outside, followed by an absolute roar. "Step aside, you absolute creep. Did not expect your fake mask to slip off this fast, right? My daughter is definitely in your house." Lyra was totally confused, but hearing him shout, "My daughter," echoed so powerfully, looping inside her head endlessly. She snapped right back to reality and slammed her entire body weight onto the floor, managing to create a very faint thudding noise. Total chaos erupted outside, followed quickly by heavy, frantic footsteps rushing closer. Seconds later, the heavy door was forcefully yanked open. Blinding light blasted right at her. Backlit by that bright glow, she only saw one tall, very familiar silhouette standing there. It was the single person she used to hate most in this entire world. But right now, she just desperately wanted to lean right on him. I glared with pure fury, sprinting in to untie her. But that absolute scumbag stepped forward and slowly closed the door behind us. "Can you believe this guy?" he sneered, claiming everyone knew I hated my stepchild, telling me to drop the act. "Are you not just putting on a show?" He smirked like an absolute demon and demanded to know exactly how much money I wanted. "I have my eyes on your kid. Let me have her once, and I will pay you $1,000. What do you say?" My hands completely froze. Lyra felt her heart clench. As expected, terrible human nature never changes. I instantly whipped out my phone and screamed as loud as I could. "Mr. Police Officer, did you catch that? Hurry up and arrest this completely disgusting freak." That night, the entire apartment building was brightly lit up and completely in total chaos. Tons of neighbors burst into absolute tears, terrified that their own kids might have been targeted by this insane villain before today. When the cops arrived, they had a very tough time restraining the absolutely furious crowd. Otherwise, that freak would have been totally crushed right there before even seeing the station. As for me, I was completely focused on checking Lyra for injuries. Thankfully, most were just minor surface scratches. But when I checked her lower half, I honestly could not help but tense up completely. I panicked, stammering, to ask if he removed her clothes. Lyra immediately turned bright red and glared at me. She said no, he lacked the time. I let out a massive sigh of relief, turning around to run her a warm bath. Right as I turned my back, I suddenly heard her voice, so soft. It was basically a whisper. Thank you. My entire body literally jolted. I froze mid-step. I played it totally cool on the outside, but inside, I was absolutely throwing a wild rave party. The universe is real. The heavens are watching. This 1,000-year iceberg is finally melting. From that exact day forward, my relationship with Lyra slowly softened. We were not exactly best friends just yet, but things were finally feeling genuinely peaceful. To help her heal emotionally, I started taking her out on weekends to do nice good deeds together. So what do you and I take from this? Always protect your family. I helped an elder cross the street, waving brightly at Lyra from the other side. See that? This is exactly how you help the elderly. But suddenly, the old man swung his arm and slapped me right on the shoulder. It hurt like absolutely crazy. Stick with me, I was just waiting for the bus. Why on earth did he drag me across? I hurriedly apologized and frantically guided the old man right back across the street. Looking up, I spotted Lyra standing there, quietly helping a trash-collecting grandpa push his heavy tricycle along. She noticed me staring, pressed her lips tight, and instantly turned away. It was like she absolutely refused to let me catch her doing a good deed. She even looked a bit haughty. Time flew by fast. In the blink of an eye, Lyra was already in the 6th grade. Now, she could head to school all by herself. She even managed to make time to cook breakfast for me every morning. Before heading out, she left instructions. Hey, the rice is right on the dining table. Make sure to heat it up. Don't drink unboiled tap water at home, okay? I know, I replied, still wrapped up like a total burrito in my warm blanket. Barely even half awake. Not long after she finally left, a sudden knock echoed on the door. Rubbing my tired eyes, I dragged myself out of bed and opened it. I figured she forgot her textbooks, but standing there was a total stranger. Though older, he looked incredibly refined and impeccably dressed. He gave off a scholarly vibe that totally clashed with our extremely run-down neighborhood. Hello, may I ask if this is Lyra's house? I am Arthur Pendleton. I took a sharp, panicked breath. Watch closely here. Hearing that name gave me absolute goosebumps. Arthur Pendleton, Lyra's fated noble benefactor from the original novel. In the original plot, Lyra was abused by her wicked stepdad. It turned her gloomy and totally closed off, despite her brilliant academic mind. A journalist staying around this area uncovered her awful situation. They felt completely outraged and quickly wrote a massive article. Arthur, a grieving man with no wife or kids, read that exact article. He felt immense, heartbreaking sympathy for Lyra's terrible plight. He quickly came up with the idea to adopt her. He handed Vance a giant pile of cash and easily rescued Lyra from this dump. From that moment, her entire destiny shifted. Arthur enrolled her into a super elite school. There, she met the warmest sunshine male lead, and her deep inner wounds finally started healing. But unfortunately, that boy ended up falling for the female lead instead. Consumed by jealousy, Lyra slowly twisted, ultimately walking the dark path of the ultimate villainess. I know what you are thinking. Regardless of the ending, Arthur remained her golden ticket. That fact was completely undeniable. I quickly invited him inside. Arthur sat opposite me, and I stayed silent for a moment before he started speaking. I asked around the neighborhood today. I heard it has been incredibly tough for you, raising Lyra all by yourself. I knew that was a highly diplomatic way of phrasing things. I knew exactly what those gossiping neighbors actually said behind my back. Vance does absolutely nothing. He makes a primary school kid wake up early just to cook. Lazy beyond belief. On weekends, the poor kid even works part-time at the local grocery store. What a totally miserable life. To be fair, their harsh words were not entirely wrong, but I never forced her to cook. My first cooking attempt almost burned the kitchen down. After that disaster, she strictly banned me from stepping foot in the kitchen. As for the part-time job, she completely took that upon herself. She never fully explained what she was earning money for, but she was fiercely independent, despite her young age, so it really was not my place to interfere. So in the eyes of outsiders, living with me truly looked like a massive struggle. Seeing me stay totally quiet, Arthur looked visibly awkward. He coughed lightly and continued. I read a beautiful article the child recently wrote in her school paper, so I decided to look into her situation. I never imagined her living conditions were like this. I genuinely adore this amazing child. I was wondering, could I perhaps officially adopt her? I heard his words and smiled gently. I cannot make that decision. You must ask Lyra and see if she actually agrees. The one thing I knew for sure was that she did not hate me anymore, unlike the original plot. Perhaps my ending wouldn't be as incredibly tragic as the original book. Since that was the case, she should absolutely be the one choosing her own future path. That afternoon, Lyra finally came home from school. She pushed the front door open and said, "I bought you 2 fresh grilled sausages. They are still hot." Looking up, she spotted Arthur sitting in our living room, and she completely froze in her tracks mid-sentence. Arthur smiled warmly, with fatherly affection. "You must be Lyra, right? You are a bit taller than I imagined. Just call me Uncle Arthur." I stepped outside, happily devoured those 2 amazing sausages, and conveniently took a long stroll. By the time it got completely dark and I returned home, Arthur was gone. Lyra was quietly sitting at her desk, doing her homework. I had absolutely no idea what the 2 of them discussed. I brought in a plate of the cold noodles she loved and gently set it down. Just as I was heading back to my room, I heard her call out, "Hey, right?" She never actually called me Dad. Normally, she just called me Hey. I tried correcting her, but she ignored it. So what do you and I make of this? Let's dive into a story that'll totally melt your heart. I turned around. "What is up?" Lyra dropped her pen and walked right up to me. "Uncle Arthur wants to adopt me," she said. I just nodded on reflex. "Great. He can easily give you a much better education. Going with him basically guarantees you an incredibly bright and successful future." Lyra stayed totally silent for a moment before asking, "Do you honestly want me to leave with him?" I pressed my lips together and kneeled down on one knee to look her right in the eyes. Seeing such a young, awkward teenage girl with such intensely serious and mature eyes honestly made my heart ache just a bit. I gently reached out and softly touched her cheek. A simple move she usually dodged every single time. But this time, she didn't even pull away. She stared right at me with completely unwavering focus. "Dad only wants you to have a great life," I said. "But honestly, your happiness matters most. You are the one who gets to make this big choice." "Absolutely. No rush at all. Take your time thinking." Arthur just visited us yesterday, but by today, the whole neighborhood was totally buzzing with wild gossip. Walking to the market, Lyra and I casually passed some extremely chatty neighbors. If she actually gets adopted, she totally hit the jackpot. That guy has serious money and huge influence. Leaving means experiencing nothing but the absolute high life. Vance basically treats her horribly anyway. She is 100% packing her bags. Plus, Vance is young and honestly pretty good looking. That stepkid was just totally dragging him down. Now watch closely, because gossip changes things. If she goes, finding a new wife is easy. Meanwhile, Lyra stood beside me, acting like she heard absolutely nothing. She just focused super intently on sorting the fresh vegetables, quietly removing a few sad, wilted leaves from my newly packed grocery bag. "These are not fresh," she mumbled. Walking home, she stayed completely quiet. Later that very night, she randomly knocked on my bedroom door. I said yes to Uncle Arthur. She looked right at me. "I leave with him in 2 days." I was absolutely shocked. My heart honestly felt like a giant boulder just crushed it flat. I stood there completely paralyzed, unable to speak a single word. Lyra gently grabbed my shirt hem and pulled me straight into the kitchen. "From now on, you really have to cook for yourself. Here is the gas switch. Always remember to turn it off. And when you sweep, make absolutely sure to clean all those deeply hidden, dusty corners. If the sink clogs, definitely call a repair guy." Seriously, I was the grown adult, and she was just a young kid. But right now, she sounded exactly like a mature adult, constantly nagging and giving me endless household instructions. The more I listened, the more totally choked up my throat felt. I mumbled some awkward responses before quietly retreating back into my own bedroom. We've all been there, right? Tossing and turning all night. After living together for years, I realized I truly cared deeply for this sweet kid. When moving day finally arrived, I aggressively double and triple checked her luggage, absolutely terrified of forgetting anything. Once I felt certain we packed everything, I slowly turned toward her, my voice getting incredibly thick with deep emotion. "Daughter, give Dad a big hug. After you leave, we probably will not have another chance." Not even waiting for her reaction, I took the initiative, stepping right forward and wrapping both arms around her, resting my chin on her shoulder. I felt her comforting warmth, and could not stop a single dramatic tear from suddenly falling. That warm tear landed directly on her neck, making her stiffen up. I panicked, afraid of losing face by crying. I quickly wiped my messy face, playing it super cool. Why is Uncle Arthur not here yet? Were you seriously planning to travel to his place all alone? I already started walking toward the door, but she just stood completely frozen. Finding this weird, I quickly glanced back and caught her staring right at my face. I'm not going anywhere. I froze. Actually, I rejected Uncle Arthur from the absolute start. Utterly paralyzed, I just stared. Then why lie about it? I really wanted to test if Dad would try keeping me here. She casually walked over, stood on her tiptoes, and used her thumb to softly wipe away that single tear track still lingering right by my widened eye. So, Dad really could not bear letting me go. I was so shook. My brain completely short-circuited, with absolutely zero response. Meanwhile, she just dragged her heavy suitcase back inside and started unpacking, acting like absolutely nothing weird happened. I finally snapped right back to reality and rushed after her. Wait, what did you even tell him? I basically said, my dad's brain is not working well, so he cannot live alone. He really needs someone to care for him. I pouted playfully, pretending to be super annoyed by her joke. But deep down inside, a massive spark of pure joy started bubbling up. After all our years together, I genuinely could not stand parting ways with this awesome kid. Hold on a second. What did she just call me? Dad. Lyra literally just called me Dad. An epic wave of shock hit me, quickly followed by a massive sense of purpose. I suddenly thought, I really have to raise Lyra right. I need to guide her perfectly. I immediately started learning real cooking, doing her laundry, and obsessively researching how to become a truly legitimate, reliable father figure. In my spare time, Ethan started focusing on making real money. So what do you and I take from this? I opened a store, hustling hard daily, but life felt amazing, mainly because Lyra was a kid who never caused worry. She was disciplined, mature, and incredibly smart. Stick with me, we are about to uncover something wild. 4 years passed, and after middle school, she brought home a crazy acceptance letter. Thanks to her flawless grades, Lyra scored direct admission into the super elite aristocratic high school, Crest View Academy. Staring at the fancy Crest View High School logo on that paper, I got totally lost in thought. Could it be that despite my intense efforts to change the plot, fate was still dragging her into the path of the main leads, where she would get consumed by intense jealousy, turn totally toxic, and hit that tragic, family-ruining finale just like the original book? Lyra instantly saw my worried face and asked, Dad, do you really not want me to attend this academy? I could hear this super tiny, barely noticeable hint of sadness in her voice. So I instantly shook my head. Why wouldn't I? My girl is an absolute genius. I'm overjoyed. I hyped myself up and told her, just wait right here. Dad is whipping up a feast to celebrate. Why stress about the plot? Lyra is a totally different person now. Let time reveal the answers. Still, right before she finally headed off to Crest View, I basically nagged her ears completely off. No dating yet. Do not pick on your classmates. Zero school bullying. Understood? Absolutely no locking anyone inside bathroom stalls. Never force anyone to drink toilet water. And strictly no fistfights. Lyra just gave me this completely confused stare, stayed quiet, nodded once, and hopped on her bus. The big city was overwhelming at first, but she adapted fast. Within half a semester, she not only caught up, but entirely blasted her way past the whole curriculum. Now pay attention to this part. Crest View was totally packed with rich kids throwing money around. I feared she'd feel inferior, but turns out, I stressed for absolutely nothing. One afternoon, I brought home 2 old shirts, asking her to wash them so I could toss them at the local flea market. But checking those inner tags, I nearly fell over backward. These were insanely expensive luxury designer brands. Where did you find these? My roommates did not want them anymore. Her totally calm response gave me a tiny heart attack. And your friends didn't care? Nope, they happily handed them over. I was just standing there completely bewildered. Why? Because they needed me to finish their group projects. Wow, being an absolute academic weapon really does open doors anywhere. I exhaled a huge sigh of relief. Finally, didn't have to stress about her getting bullied or starting wild drama anymore. My online shop from last year went totally bankrupt. I started brainstorming fresh job ideas to start over. But right before my next hustle took off, I noticed Lyra suddenly showing some really weird and mysterious signs. She always came back every single weekend, but suddenly, that shifted to just once every 2 weeks. When I questioned her, she casually claimed she was working a weekend gig right near her campus. She even packed up her old piggy bank. But I always sent her plenty of living expenses every month. What in the world did she actually need all that extra cash for? My dad anxiety completely flared up. Wanting extra money is usually step one toward a teenager going rogue. We all knew something was up, right? One weekend, I finally interrogated her, and she honestly hid absolutely nothing. There is this boy at school, a scholarship student, just like me. His family recently went through a truly massive tragedy. He sadly lost his parents, and his grandma is critically ill in the hospital. If I do not help him, he must drop out and work. I totally froze. She brought her piggy bank just to help this boy? I leaped up like I won the ultimate lottery. That is a wonderful deed. My daughter doing a noble deed. Excellent. I clapped my hands, bursting with pure pride. But while happily whistling my way to the kitchen, I heard her quietly mumble right behind me. I'm just a little bit luckier than him. Chopping veggies. Something suddenly felt incredibly wrong in my gut. I gripped that kitchen knife and bolted straight into her bedroom. What is his name? Lyra looked super confused. His name is Caspian. Clang. That heavy knife dropped right to the floor. Caspian. In the original novel, he is the male lead. The very guy who drove Lyra into madness, shattering her entire sense of self. He actually appeared, but I was totally confused. In the main story, the female lead, Kupi, was the one paying his massive hospital bills. Sure, she had conditions, but her act softened the heavy tension and served as the ultimate stepping stone for their epic future romance. Why on earth was Lyra helping him now? Could it be? My precious daughter upgraded herself from supporting Villainess straight to female lead. I excitedly rushed over to ask, but her answer shattered my wild theory. I do not like him. I honestly just pity him. Lyra stared at me totally calmly. Didn't you say we should always help people? I forced a couple of awkward laughs. Yeah, Dad said that. All right, Dad won't bother your studying. I tiptoed to the living room couch to think. Trust me, you and I must watch this wild plot play out. I absolutely must observe this. If she really likes Caspian, I need to crush that tiny little spark right now, before it even hatches. Listen to me, even villains with unlimited cash couldn't beat the female lead's crazy plot armor. So, you and I both know I must stop this before my kid gets dragged into a wild romance. Tornado. 2 weeks passed. Lyra returned from school. Meanwhile, I was grabbing groceries at the local market when I saw a familiar face. He said, "Hey, your Lyra is back." I was super excited, ready to buy extra chicken to celebrate. But then he dropped a massive bombshell. She brought a classmate over too. My eyes went wide. Seriously? I completely forgot the chicken and sprinted straight home. Is this whole relationship progressing way too fast, or what? Hearing she brought someone home made my anxiety skyrocket. Like an absolute disaster was about to strike. I threw the door wide open. Lyra was chilling on the couch unpacking, and the bathroom water was running loudly. I leaned in, nervously whispering, "Who exactly did you bring home?" "Just a classmate," Lyra said. "She is staying a few days." "Why did you not tell Dad?" Then, the bathroom door slowly clicked open. A silhouette walked out. The rest of my sentence literally got stuck in my throat forever. It is a girl. A girl is awesome. And she was absolutely gorgeous, glowing with elegant energy. One look told you she was a wealthy, sheltered kid. She smiled warmly. "Hello uncle, I am Lyra's classmate. The name is Kyopi." Oh, my goodness. After saving the main guy, my sweet daughter did it again by bringing the runaway female lead home. Now watch closely, because originally, this epic hero moment belonged entirely to the male lead. Kyopi's dad brought his secret daughter over, making her poor mother absolutely furious. Kyopi fought him, got totally grounded, and lost her allowance. Feeling completely suffocated, she ran away from home. Originally, it was Caspian's gentle kindness that brought her back to his tiny, broken down little apartment. Even keeping their distance, living under one roof quickly sparked a massive romantic connection. But right now, I am watching Lyra prep a fresh bed, fluffing pillows, and asking Calliope, "You are sleeping with me tonight, right?" The bed is huge. I swear, My kid does not just have a big heart, she has massive courage. Over dinner, listening to Calliope, I discovered that Lyra was actually incredibly popular at her school. She seems cold, but she is super kind. She always helps people out. Kyopi smiled, grabbing a tasty bite. If she had not protected me, I would be bullied. I quickly tossed extra meat into Calliope's dinner bowl. Thanks for saying such awesome things about my daughter. She paused a second and added, plus, she is super popular with the boys. I know so many guys who totally have a massive crush on her. Oh, wait. What was the name of that super handsome guy in the next class? Caspian something? Lyra answered super casually. Caspian really likes you, right? Kali smirked playfully. I totally saw him confess his feelings. My hand shook violently. The meat I held dropped onto the table. Lyra glared intensely. Stop talking nonsense. There is absolutely nothing between us. Kupi paused, then threw an arm around Lyra. Well, that is awesome. Help me out then, okay? Because I think I have a huge crush on him. My hand trembled again. This time, vegetables completely plummeted right onto the dinner table. Lyra finally glanced at me, pointing her chopsticks at the mess. Dad, you are wasting food again. I know exactly what you are thinking. The original plot has fully derailed, completely changing my daughter's amazing destiny forever. This should have been wonderful news, but honestly, my heart filled with a really dark sense of unease. That exact unease proved totally right 1 year later. Walking back from the market, a weird electric static buzzed in my head, followed instantly by a flat, robotic voice. System 08 activated. I yelled out, I knew it. Falling into a novel randomly? How could there not be a system? It claimed a server glitch caused the huge delay, but I called total bluff. I bet it just totally forgot me. Friendly reminder for you. Your mission ends in 3 years. Then, the system checks your happiness index. If it passes, the mission succeeds, and you return to your original world. I asked in a total panic. And if it fails, you stay stuck here forever, living out your entire life as Vance Sterling. I went completely silent. When I first got here, I missed home desperately, hiding under blankets every single night. And that is where we leave it. After giving up completely, I actually have a chance to finally go home. Stick with me here, finding out I would actually see my beloved family again. Trust me, how could I not get completely emotional? Taking a deep breath to calm down, remembered the system's strange rules. I quickly snapped back, asking, whose happiness index exactly? Obviously, the happiness of the main characters in this story. Together, the male and female lead make up 90% of it. The system literally said this entire world exists just for them. Their romantic happiness is literally the pure fuel keeping this whole world spinning. That epic joy comes from surviving massive trials, spicy misunderstandings, dramatic reunions after tough breakups, and the absolute thrill of finding what was once completely lost to them. Every single one of these paths charges up that massive happiness meter. Getting those points totally requires a bunch of supporting characters. The wicked villain, the jealous best friend, the random haters throwing obstacles. They act as catalysts, making that happiness score completely skyrocket, explained my little system. I am giving you a friendly warning right now. The villainous Lyra has completely changed her personality. This shift heavily ruined the energy conversion rate for our main couple's precious happiness index. Watch closely. After 3 years, the index completely failed the requirement. I felt a tiny flash of regret. But looking at how wonderful Lyra was doing right now, I had absolutely zero reasons to be sorry. The kid grew taller and way smarter every single day. She became a standout student, shining in the giant city. Plus, she treated Vance Sterling incredibly well. The entire neighborhood constantly sang her endless praises. Standing at the bus stop, I watched her step down while the crowd stared in awe. Lyra gave a humble nod, looked up, and instantly spotted me. I sprinted over to grab her bags. Entering senior year of high school, the most important time ever, she looked wonderfully tall. Her face looked incredibly mature now, totally shedding that innocent, youthful vibe from before. The evening sun made her silhouette practically glow. Dad, let us go home. She took the heavy bags back. I walked happily forward while she shared stories about her school, brand new friends, and all the crazy things happening recently. Sloane acts a bit hot-headed, but she is genuinely sweet. A little arrogant, sure, but talk nicely, and she actually listens. Oh, Calliope confessed to Caspian, but he totally rejected her. Even so, they promised to study hard for the exact same university. It suddenly clicked. My kid's roommate liked Caspian too. She asked, "Dad, know that girl? Her name is Elodie. She is super quiet." I worried she would feel sad, so I literally talked with her all night long. She feels way better now. I listened quietly, keeping a smile, even though I completely recognized every single name she dropped. Slashian was actually the original Wicked side character. You see the irony here, right? Elodie played the tragic side girl, while my daughter Lyra single-handedly bulldozed every single obstacle blocking the main couple's romantic path. That is my girl. I wanted to laugh, but my stomach felt totally tied in knots. Lyra noticed quickly. She slowed down. "Dad, what is wrong?" "Nothing." I gently shook my head. "Just feeling happy." "Have you thought things through?" "I want the journalism program at the first university," she stated with absolute certainty. She always knew her own mind. I never interfered with her big choices. Senior year flew by fast. She studied late every single night. On college entrance exam, I proudly walked her straight to school. Joining us were Kalipi and Sloan. Elodie, facing tough family circumstances, had already prepared to study abroad. Watching these amazing kids stand together, the moment felt wonderfully surreal. The female lead, the wicked side girl, the tragic side girl, and the main villainess all bravely taking their exams together. Right then Lyra approached me, usually so reserved. She suddenly threw her arms around me, rested on my shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." That one simple sentence instantly made my eyes tear up. I turned 39 this year. I lived in this crazy world for 10 full years. Over 10 years, I dragged someone destined for total darkness right back into the beautiful light. Honestly, it was absolutely worth every single second. After exams, Lyra scored exactly what she wanted. Admission straight into the first university's journalism department. On move-in day, I packed her bags. Watching me rush around, she laughed. "Dad, you look like you've shrunk since last year." I mock glared, tossing socks at her face. "That is simply because you got too tall." During 4 years of college, the kid became a total sponge, relentlessly absorbing endless knowledge. She followed professors into social investigations, bravely exposed corrupt factories, reported on mountain kids, and passionately helped push massive poverty relief projects forward. Trust me on this. Every time her name hits the news, I feel insanely proud, even if she constantly pokes the dangerous hornet's nest of villains. Stick with me here. During her junior year, summer, while investigating a terrible case, the landlord brutally attacked her with a blade. Hearing the news, I rushed straight to the hospital. Her arm was covered in heavy bandages. Seeing me, she still played it completely cool. "Totally fine, Dad. Missed the tendons completely. I just need some rest to heal up. Plus, that monster got totally busted. At least that family gets total peace for the next several months." My eyes were watery as I peeled an apple for her. Suddenly, she called out, "Dad." I looked up and saw Lyra tearing up. "If I had never met you, would my life have been a total disaster?" I looked down, my voice totally cracking. "I was not exactly great to you in the beginning." "Yeah." Lyra paused for just a second. "That is why I always felt you turned into a completely different person, Dad." Hearing that, I absolutely froze. Lyra whispered softly, "Are you some kind of guardian angel sent down to rescue me, Dad?" "So cheesy," I muttered back. While I looked after her at the hospital, Lyra gossiped about her friends. Kayap and Caspian had officially started dating back in their college days. They bickered constantly, but their bond was absolutely rock solid. Sloan also found true love and was busy planning a massive wedding for after graduation next year. Elodie had successfully launched her very own small business, pouring her whole heart into her career. Everyone was living exactly like the main character of their own lives. Now, pay close attention here. On the day Lyra finally left the hospital, the system voice suddenly returned, calculating happiness values. I completely zoned out, but just let it go. If I fail, whatever. I made peace with that outcome a long time ago anyway. But unexpectedly, the very next second, the system announced the results. Confirmed. The overall happiness value of this world has successfully met the standard. Congratulations to the host. Mission accomplished. I stood there dumbfounded. How is that possible? This time, the system explained things clearly. Besides the main male and female leads, side mission characters only account for 10% of the total value. But because their happiness scores were overwhelmingly massive, it completely changed the overall result. In history, you are the absolute first host to complete a mission using this exact method. I blinked, suppressing my overwhelming emotions. So, when do I get to go back? In 2 months, via permanent exit. The medical report slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor. Footsteps echoed behind me. I turned to see Lyra running straight toward me with a bright, joyful smile. You felt that drop, right? The scenery completely blurred. My head spun, and suddenly everything faded into pitch black. Right before losing consciousness, I heard Lyra's completely choked and desperate scream. Dad. Waking up, I found myself in a hospital bed. The doctor told me I had an incurable liver illness. 3 months left. Absolute maximum. That is totally impossible. Lyra argued, her eyes bright red. My dad gets a full health checkup every single year. He was perfectly fine last year. The doctor just looked at her with totally sympathetic eyes. Sometimes this horrible illness progresses incredibly fast. I completely understood. This was just the system arranging my exit. I guess this means my ultimate mission is truly finished. Lyra took an immediate leave of absence from her university, staying right by my side day and night, to completely take care of me. She cooked all kinds of meals for me, even though I could not keep them down. She also read her written articles out loud to me, even though I normally fell asleep before she could finish a few sentences. One tough night, I woke up from the pain and saw her resting her head on the bed. Her hand still tightly gripped a damp towel. Under the gentle moonlight, I saw a few silver strands forming in her hair. She is only 22. I felt a sharp ache inside my heart and gently stroked her hair. She jolted awake, frantically asking, Dad, are you hurting anywhere? I just shook my head and suddenly spoke up. Hey, daughter. Dad really wants to see you in a beautiful wedding dress. The very next day, she borrowed a dress and clumsily altered it right beside my hospital bed. I smiled warmly. My daughter is so incredibly beautiful. I seriously wonder which lucky punk is going to marry you in the future. As she leaned to tuck me in, I caught a very faint, nostalgic whiff of mild soap on her. In that fleeting second, it felt exactly like looking at that guarded 8-year-old girl with wide, hyper-vigilant eyes from our very first day. I whispered, in this entire life, my greatest pride is having a daughter like you. I tried so hard to keep my voice completely steady. You have to live a great life from now on. Lyra's heavy tears fell onto the back of my hand, completely burning hot. She gripped my hand tightly, sobbing too hard to even speak. Right at that exact moment, the system suddenly rang inside my head. Host has completed the mission. Opening the space-time portal. Teleportation begins in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8. Before my consciousness completely slipped into the void, I saw the hospital room door slowly push open. Kyopi, Caspian, and Sloane walked in, each carrying beautiful fresh flowers. You guys better live happily, I whispered softly. I do not even know if they heard me. And that is where we leave it. Opening my eyes, I was back in my room, staring at the exact date my transmigration originally started. Shaking, I called my mom. The second her voice came through the phone, I completely broke down into loud, unstoppable tears. Stick with me here. Barely an hour passed in reality, but I had just lived 15 entire years inside another world. I raised a hand and smacked my own cheek hard. It was not a nightmare. It was just a truly, wonderfully beautiful dream. Inside that dream, I accomplished so much good. Even years later, I still see Lyra in my sleep. I dreamed she became a highly famous journalist. I saw her standing as a bridesmaid for Caspian and Calliope's wedding. I dreamed she finally met her true love and walked happily down the aisle. Then, she had a beautiful child, and their little family of 3 went to snap a gorgeous family portrait. In that picture, Lyra wore a stunning wedding dress right alongside her loving husband and precious baby. Now watch this part closely. Over in the corner, one spot stayed totally empty, holding only a tiny teacup. Someone asked who that empty space was for. She smiled. For my dad. He always wanted to see my wedding dress. And then, my eyes snapped open. Soft morning sunlight poured through my window. A gentle breeze slowly turned the pages of that familiar novel resting quietly on my desk. I wiped my eyes and shoved the book deep into my shelf. Lyra, if you are happy, that is enough. As for Dad, I will keep pushing forward to find my own joy too. Thank you guys so much for watching this entire video. You and I both know family goes way beyond simple bloodlines. Sometimes, the strongest bonds completely ignore titles and just give pure love without holding back. These amazing people step up to carry our heaviest burdens. sacrificing everything during our hardest years without ever asking for a single thing in return. Real family can just be a sweet, everyday voice calling out, a warm dinner ready every single night, and those caring eyes watching us proudly grow day by day. Some people become family not from forced duty, but out of pure and truly unconditional love. Because just hearing the words dad and daughter ring out is powerful enough to warm up this harsh, lonely world. Ultimately, the most beautiful treasure is not sharing genetics. It is walking that tough journey together, using your whole absolute heart to fiercely love, protect, and raise each other through it all. If you have an amazing person like that in your life, never hesitate to say thank you. And if you were the one quietly giving that kind of devotion, I promise your love was never, ever a waste. What do we take from this? Hold your loved ones tight, because true family is rare. See you in the next one.